Hello, team. Pardon me. I normally put my mic lapel on before I turn my camera, but I forgot today. But the sun is up. I was too busy looking at our cold, snowy, gray sunrise, but the sun rose. I checked, and Bitcoin's running just as surely as the sun rose. So we can have our coffee and talk about the news. Morning, Bud. Morning, JW. Indeed, let's get after it. Bonjour, Kevin, avec le salut. T'es francophone. So Elon Musk continues to be the most interesting person in the world. Right? We got to cover Elon Musk on every single show. Morning, Dex. Did you see? He had a bunch of these pictures yesterday of sort of the Friday night after the craziness, and you could see Elon Musk was still in the headquarters at Twitter, and he had a bunch of staff around him, and it looked like he was telling stories, and they had made it through the crazy week and all that stuff. It looked like just an awesome picture. But of course, Elon, everyone's saying, oh, the thing's going to crash. They don't have developers. What are they going to do? He fired all the marketing department. We talk about this show all the time, how Elon Musk is one of the best marketers in the world, right? He's not an engineer. He's not an engineer. He's not an engineer. I always like to remind people. Taught him engineering himself, right? Taught himself engineering. Physics student, not far from where we are here. He was in Canada. He went to college for a little while in Canada, but dropped out, as people with that kind of IQ probably should. So his whole thing about getting rid of the marketing department, you'd say, how are what a thing to get rid of just before, just when you take off and you want to grow the thing. Well, first of all, my perception of marketing has always been it's mostly ineffective. I mean, 99% of marketing spend, I think, is ineffective. Marketing works in a number of ways when it does work. Mostly, the way I see marketing in companies I've worked for and things I've done is marketing is really just people in their own office marketing up to their bosses that they're doing their work. Like, it doesn't actually have penetration in the marketplace. Marketing works when the product is new and you've never seen it before, or it's just a really good ad. Sometimes that happens. Like the FTX one, we talked about it yesterday. The FTX Larry David one was a good ad for what it was, targeting that sort of boomer mentality. We talked a lot about how external validation and being loved by a group is really important, and a lot of marketing to boomers reflect that. We contrasted it with the Coinbase ad, which was what we suggested is sort of this new, if you're internally guided, if you're guided by your own internal gyroscope, by your third eye, by your ability to count in Bitcoin, you're going to just look at product features and not the fluff, right? So it was, the whole point of the Wall Street Journal ad yesterday in the Coinbase ad in the Wall Street Journal was to show that, assets were backed one-to-one, that the custody of assets was kept in a way that they couldn't go trade it, that the thing was based in America, that you had the legal system on your side, and blah, blah, blah. So it was a feature thing, certainly in response to FTX, of course, right? Of course, but nevertheless. So Elon does one of the most clever things anyone has ever done yesterday for marketing. So forget about Ligma and Johnson for a second. What Elon did yesterday is going to get people hooked on Twitter more than ever. He's created this situation where it's called Freedom Fridays, and he's letting all these characters out of their locked, bricked Twitter accounts. So Jordan Peterson, back online last night. Andrew Tate, back online. But here's how clever, here's just how amazingly clever Elon is about all this stuff. And I predicted it, I think, on this show when it first happened. Kathy Griffin. We are fans of Kathy Griffin, right? And for whatever it is she does, she's a comedian, and we were not pro Kathy Griffin getting kicked off when she did for impersonating Elon. But at the time, I made a prediction that Elon was going to backtrack on that immediately and would get publicity out of it. So what happens yesterday? Elon comes out and frees Jordan Peterson and Kathy Griffin. It's sort of like a prisoner swap, like one for one. Like Kathy, I mean, she's obviously more left-wing. She hates Elon, according to that same sort of strain of thought out there that Elon is now this fascist, all the same crap they threw at Trump a generation ago. Because the thing about Elon now is that not only does he own Twitter, he's the best tweeter there is. Trump was the best tweeter before he got kicked off. But now Elon is, I think, the best tweeter. Did anyone see this where AOC was talking about, so AOC comes out and says, you know, none of you people at Twitter deserve what's happening. You know, you've worked so hard and built a great company. I just wish all the best for you, and you're going to get there. And who responds? Elon, thank you. He thanked her for saying they deserve better and all this stuff. I mean, that's troll lord stuff, right? That's top of the level, top of the line. So Elon, funniest guy going. And then to even get more attention, he doesn't reinstate Trump. So you get 1,000 million people out there. What about Trump? What about Trump? So he runs a poll, right? And he says it's like the most popular poll in the history of Twitter. He's got like millions of people jumping in. And then, of course, everyone notices because it's about 80% pro readmitting Trump when he first launches it. And then earlier this morning, so it looks like he's just sleeping at Twitter, by the way. Like it looks like he's just there all the time now. So he just moved in. So he does the poll, and then all of a sudden there's folks that come in and it looks like bots. People are saying it's bots, right? Because it was like 80% Trump pro getting back on Twitter, which probably makes sense because most people who would be looking at Elon Musk's account probably by now have been sifted through. You probably don't have many of the you know, let's say NPCs following his account as much anymore, giving all those NPC answers. Oh, what about democracy, Elon? What about freedom of speech? $8 freedom of speech, they always say now, you know. They confuse like the rights with the cost. Have you seen that? Like when people confuse the cost, the $8 cost, and they say he doesn't believe in free speech anymore because he charges $8 for Twitter. It's amazing. It's hilarious. So, so he runs the poll. And then people say the leftist bots who don't want free speech are starting to attack the poll. It used to be at 80% supporting his account reinstatement, but now it's at 52%. Please stop these bots and save free speech. Elon answers back, the bot attack is impressive to watch, right? So it doesn't even, again, this is just pure amazing persuasion, right? He's not sitting there trying to say, bots yes, bots no, what are we going to do about it? Like, look at these bots go, right? This is awesome. But it wasn't all good. Elon took fire on many sides for who he's let back and who he hasn't. And a friend of mine, I went to law school with this guy, and he's quite a big personality on YouTube and Twitter. His name is Viva Frei. David Freiheit is his real name. But he was an old friend of mine from law school, and he's become a pretty big account in Canada and in America. And he came out and actually got a response from Elon in the thread. He said, Alex Jones is the litmus test, Elon Musk. Not just on the issue of freedom of speech, but on the issue of not bending the knee to political and judicial intimidation. If this is a hard no, your Twitter will never be any more trustworthy than Paraga or Jack's Twitter. And what does Elon say? Too bad. Too bad. So, well, I agree with my friend Viva Frei, and do think, you know, I would love to see, morning, Justin, morning fair trade trousers from London, morning hyper Bitcoinization from Canada. Morning, everyone. And yeah, there you go, Muslim Bitcoiner. We love you, man. I'm gonna practice pronouncing us. I'm gonna practice pronouncing the Arab good morning, brother. And I'll get it for you next time, Muslim Bitcoiner. I'll pronounce it so that I can say it with you, because I actually love that word. I love the way it sounds. I've always loved the way that sounds. So I want to be able to get it out there and pronounce it properly. When I've been to Arab countries, I had it down when I was there, but I forget it. So I'm not strong enough at remembering it. So what about this Elon Musk and Alex Jones thing? Look, I mean, in all rights, Alex Jones should have the ability to communicate on it, but I understand the political implications. And, you know, I kind of reserve, like, I kind of think Alex Jones is one of these national treasures, right? Like, obviously, I see him as an entertainer. Obviously, I don't see him as a source of news, although I've always enjoyed his point of view and all that stuff. Now, his legal case, which we're going to get to in a second, is horrendous, because he tried to use the same defense that Rachel Maddow from MSNBC used, which is, I don't know if you know this, but the lead anchor on MSNBC has been sued for fake news before. And her defense was, I'm not a journalist, I'm an entertainer. So I can't be a fake news proponent because I'm not actually a news person. if you didn't know, Tucker Carlson has also used this defense, which I also agree with, right? Tucker Carlson, not really there to give you the exact truth. He's there to push buttons and try and get you to think about a different, see things from a different point of view. Now, I still think both Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson are news people. This was just a way for the legal system to not be able to infringe their freedom of speech, basically. They are not limited to the same libel that you and I and normal people are because of this entertainer quality. And Alex Jones tried to use the same thing, right? Alex Jones tried to use the same defense. They didn't give it to him. They said, no, you're a liar and it's news. So it turns out now that the class action suit is going to be, this is what they say it's going to be. This came out yesterday in Forbes, right? They're talking, it was already, I think, $600 million they said he owed. Now they're going to say it's $3 trillion. That's the fine they're talking about for Alex Jones and his defamation trial. $3 trillion are being claimed by the plaintiffs. So someone comes in and says, I don't know if Alex Jones has 3 times the GDP of Scotland in his bank account. So that's a pretty good take, right? $3 trillion. That's, I think the Canadian economy is like 15 trillion or something. So it's like a portion of the Canadian economy they expect him to pay, which is amazing. So the thing about Alex Jones is, he tried this defense, and while I think he's entertaining. I love InfoWars. I love Alex Jones was right as an account and to follow it. And I was always into the entertainment value of Alex Jones. And that's not to say he doesn't bring up serious things, and it's not to say he isn't like an important person. I think, like I said, Alex Jones is a national treasure. But I don't agree with him on most things, and I see it as a little bit of wrestling mixed with reality, mixed with news. It's a whole mess of stuff. And so in my mind, as we go through this war that we're in, this war, psychological war that we're all caught up in, I continue to think that Alex Jones is just one of those guys who we're only going to see again at the end take center stage again. I predict a world where Alex Jones is going to be like getting standing ovations at football games and stuff like that, but not for another 10 years. For now, he's in this purgatory, and I understand why Elon Musk wouldn't want to go to bat for Alex Jones. Elon Musk still has a job to make sure that everyone comes to Twitter to fight and argue about this stuff, because Twitter won't be fun if it's just one point of view, right? If Twitter was already just Bitcoin maxis, imagine that world, right? It wouldn't be very much fun. We wouldn't have ETH people to talk to and fight and argue against. We wouldn't be able to have the contrast that this week has provided Bitcoiners. And if you see, we're going to talk about this today. This is sort of an infograph or a meme that's been passed around on Twitter the past couple of days in response to FTX and everything that's going on. And it really is sort of the vibe of the moment. We're going to talk a bit more about it. But as you see here, there's this broken perception that Bitcoin was a subcategory of crypto, and that both of those were separate from dollars, right? So this thing has now been shared everywhere by Bitcoiners, and what it looks like, is how we always saw it. Bitcoin is separate from fiat, and crypto is just a subcategory of fiat, right? This is sort of working its way into the system right now, and people are starting to really agree with this, and you've seen this chart sort of go viral. We're going to talk a bit more about it. Bud Perry says, Alex Jones is going to need one of those black boxes that FBF was explaining about how to... No, even better. I say everyone should just hire Hunter Biden. Any trouble you have, just hire Hunter Biden. Like, he doesn't have, just hire him. Like, he gets away with everything. Just hire Hunter Biden. It'll be great, Maybe it'll be different now that they're going to investigate him. But I told exchanges, when this stuff started with the NFT business and his art sales and all that stuff, I said, hire Hunter Biden. Like, we should just all hire Hunter Biden. Everyone should hire Hunter Biden. And maybe we won't get in trouble, right? That's what I said. I've been saying that for a year. Every exchange should have Hunter Biden on the payroll, 100%. He should be like the NFT artist in residence. And then I guess you don't have to listen to any FinTrack, FinCEN, FATF, all that stuff goes out the door, right? It's all Hunter Biden's art collection, right? We'll be fine. So they asked for $3 trillion for Alex Jones. And it just brings the legal system into disrepute, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. It brings the legal system into disrepute more than it already has been, right? We're we're going to talk a bit about the things that have been brought into disrepute in the past 2 weeks. And that's a big one, right? So you've got Elon Musk now doing these Freedom Fridays, and he's breaking that that kind of crystallized, frozen in place, stuck in the middle perception that people have, because by bringing Kathy Griffin, clearly a liberal, and Jordan Peterson back at the same time, he is still saying this is a place to come and fight. This is a place to come and have debate, right? I'm not gonna just favor one side, right? He does have to manage that perception that there is still a welcome mat outside for every point of view. And I think that's important, right? If we don't have the crypto people crying their eyes out, it's very difficult for Bitcoiners to make their point, right? Watching these crypto people come and say, oh, geez, I should have listened to you people over the past little while. Seeing all those screenshots recently of everyone warning about what Pomp was selling and about what this influencer was selling and that influencer was selling, that stuff's really valuable now. And if we were only talking to ourselves, it wouldn't have as much of a range, right? It has much more range now that everyone's there. So it's always why I don't like those other, Parler and Truth Social. I don't use them, right? Because it's not that I want to hang out and hear the opinions of liberal people or fiat people or no coiners or any of that stuff, or conservatives, right? It's not that I want to hear all those opinions per se. I want the tension, the contrast, and the conflict, because that's the point of all of this stuff. It's not to be in a church choir. You're not there to preach to the choir, right? We're there to preach to the unconverted, right? That's the very important part that we do. So, so this whole $3 trillion thing is bringing it into disrepute. But this meme here reminds me of something, and it's kind of what we have going for us right now, and it's kind of what I, titled this show about. In a lot of ways, in the American Revolutionary War, when it looked really bad, right? It looked really bad for the American forces at one point. One winter, it set in, and George Washington had to run away from New York City because the British were on his ass. And he made it to Pennsylvania, made it to a place called Valley Forge. And Valley Forge was, just a place to make a winter camp. But in the end, it didn't go very well. This was a very tough winter. They lost, I think, about a quarter of the soldiers to malnutrition, disease. They were there for 5 months, right? 5 months, people dying, no supplies, just out in the elements. They built these little log cabins that you can go visit today, but they weren't much. And getting through that winter was a really important thing. And I think that's where we're at in Bitcoin right now. I think this winter is going to be tough because this hasn't really sunk in with people, right? We're having to eat all these shit sandwiches that the crypto people have created. And so we got to eat these shit sandwiches. But the wedge is there. People are starting to see the difference. But I think if we get through the winter and we get to spring, that's going to be the end of this crypto winter, and we're going to start seeing positive momentum and all these things, the same way that George Washington's army did when they got out of that Valley Forge situation. It was better for everyone in the end to go through it and get out of it. And then the army the Continental Army after that didn't really have as many setbacks, and it was a much straighter line to creating the country. So I really do think we're there, and I even think that our own event, Bitcoin Magazine's event in May, when we get out of this, is going to be one of those big turning points in the war, right? I really think, I tend to think of us Bitcoiners as the D-Day operation. We're there to storm a beach and do things, right? Do things with what we've understood, what we've learned. This is one battlefront we're on now, but bringing that positive momentum, the enthusiasm we're going to bring to the world. And I'll tell you the reasons why in a minute. There's a lot going on we have to be really positive about. We're going to come out of this winter, and I think the path to hyper-Bitcoinization is going to be clear to a lot of people once we make it through this winter. I think we're going to get that distance we need from the tricky financial world of engineers working in Ethereum and all of their little mousetraps. we're going to get away from that and into the actual important things that Bitcoin is trying to change: consumption habits, saving habits, all those things, right? Time preference. So here's an account. If you're not following it, I recommend following it. It's called the Sirius Report, Sirius. I think like Sirius Satellite Radio, the same spelling. Nothing. They're not related at all. It's just a person. And he does get into psychology a lot, like we try to talk about on this show a lot. We use a psychological frame, of course, about breaking up with the fiat world, right? That it's not about trading your dollars for Bitcoin. It's not quite enough. You're actually ending a relationship with a whole system and people and all that kind of stuff. And he's a minor Bitcoiner, not really a Bitcoin account at all. It's just global news and things like that. But here's something he said about what's going on what's going on with Twitter, virtual reality, NPCs, all that kind of stuff. So what he says is, the reaction of the apparent demise of Twitter is symptomatic of people having lost touch with the things which truly matter: relationships, real relationships, real interaction, engagement with the real world and with nature. They place more value in virtual reality than in life itself. And here's the reality part. Fundamental trait in humanity is their desire to place an unswerving faith in things they wish to believe to be true, instead of facing reality of what is actually happening. The more reality becomes irrefutable, they double down and become angry when anyone questions those beliefs. So it's an important comment, because the Valley Forge thing that I just mentioned, George Washington, one of George Washington's superpowers, according to anyone who has written about him, studied his life, and all these things, is that George Washington was a realist, right? He never really put lipstick on a pig. He was an anti-politician in that way. He wouldn't try and take the political, this is the optimistic way to see things all the time. He looked at things in reality and was able to manage those and deal with those. And the people who did spend a lot of time with him always remarked that, right? And what Sirius Report here is saying is that we end up in that world, right? We end up in that world now where people would rather believe one thing rather than the reality in front of them. But he also says, right? He also says that it's a human trait, and we all do that, including us Bitcoiners, right? So what you have to be careful for is the thing he says at the end. The more reality becomes irrefutable, they double down and become angry when anyone questions those beliefs. So that's cognitive dissonance, right? The anger, when you hear someone disagree with you and you get that bit of anger, like even when if you see someone say something stupid on the internet, or you see someone say something stupid on television, or whatever it is, usually about Bitcoin, right? We can get triggered pretty easily about Bitcoin when idiots talk about it, right? That little feeling in your stomach, that is cognitive dissonance, right? That is cognitive dissonance. Now, the reality is we all get it, right? Because we don't want to have to recalculate. We don't want to have to reproject the future. We don't want to have to do, it's annoying, right? So our brains don't like the extra work and deny it, right? Deny it. Now, the thing you have to do as a Bitcoiner to protect yourself from this is let that feeling go through you, right? You can't block it out by coming up with arguments. You have to just accept it. We might be wrong about Bitcoin. There's a total possibility we might be wrong, right? That's why when we say stay humble, stack sats, the humble part for me is always, there is a chance we're wrong. There is a chance we're wrong, right? So you've got to remind yourself, there is a chance. There is a chance, right? You have to take criticism of Bitcoin in when people say, it could all fail. There is a chance, right? There is a chance. But then you've got to look at the whole picture, right? So you admit there's a chance, but take a look at the whole picture after, right? To see if your worldview still checks out, to see if your predictions still check out, to see if your the path we're on still checks out. Because if you continue to change the inputs to understand your time now, and you get it right, your predictions will come out to be true, and you'll be able to double back and see that you had an understanding of the world at that time. So what we see now, right, is this contrast. And just take a look at, again, the Alex Jones case. $3 trillion. Look at all these subpoenas now flying around. We've got subpoenas for Hunter Biden, and the Department of Justice has subpoenaed Trump now. So Trump's got more legal things, right? So it's all these legal fights going on. And when people look at that stuff, right? And I'll even say, you know, take a look at this case with the Republicans are going after Hunter Biden, but they're really trying to go after Joe Biden. Well, I don't think it's going to work out, right? Like, they can get Hunter Biden, but it's very easy for the dad to shield himself. So you're about to get a whole nother load of fake news from the GOP about, oh, what did he know and what. Now, I'm not talking about truth. It's not the same thing, right? Whether it's true that Joe Biden and his son did stuff is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability to prove it in law and the ability to know what happened and get to the bottom of it. It's too easy for Joe to defend himself, right? Like, it's so easy for him to defend himself. I didn't know. I didn't take the money. Right? He can do that all day long. So you're going to get all kinds of people, he should go to jail, the same way they were with Trump. So you got to be careful of that, right? You don't want to get caught up in this stuff, right? You don't want to get caught up in the time suck and anger. None of it matters, right? What matters is the justice system itself is in disrepute, right? Itself, the justice system itself. Don't worry about the individual cases. If you've got a situation where they're asking for $3 trillion from Alex Jones, it's not real. It's a kangaroo court, right? If you get a situation where they're going after the president because his son did illegal stuff, right? It's going to be hard to find the proof. You got to find a smoking gun here, right? You can't just say they're tied together and then they will be. You'll end up doing all of this perception stuff. You're not going to be able to handle reality, and you're just going to use emotions and anger, and they connected. It's his son, and he did stuff, and who's the big guy? You know, all these things. Who's the big guy, right? So that's a big part of it, right? And here's another example, right? This is from just today. So you've got all this stuff going on, right? And the Department of Justice, what do they have time for? Well, as Sal the Agorist says, the shit libs can't afford their Taylor Swift tickets anymore. So the Department of Justice is launching an investigation into Ticketmaster, not on Maxwell's client list. That's Epstein's, you know, whatever, the girl who worked for him, his madam. Not SPF and FTX, right? There's nothing from the Department of Justice on Hunter Biden's laptop. It's just Taylor Swift Ticketmaster stuff, right? Okay. But of course, that's the kind of thing we're dealing with, right? The entire Justice Department is seen as a political entity now, and not the justice is blind and we're going to balance things, right? That whole institution is without credibility now, right? So if we're talking again, right, go back now to what people can say about Bitcoin and those things, right? So we might fail. It's true, right? But for us to fail, you've got to have a legal system that works, right? We thrive off a broken legal system. That's what we, you know, that's a condition of Bitcoin taking over in a sense, right? That financial regulators are regarded as stupid, which FTX has miraculously done for us. I mean, look at the disrepute the SEC, the CFTC, and these other entities have come into. I mean, it's probably, at least in the eyes of crypto people and Bitcoiners, they can't come back from that, right? That's a fatal blow, a fatal blow. They'll probably never get any credibility anymore. You see people even advertising now, we are US licensed. It means nothing. FTX was, right? What are you talking about, right? What are you talking about? So that's a major, major change. Look at the news again, right? Look at the news. Look at the Twitter case in the news. This is from the New York Times today. This is from the New York Times today. And this was written by the person who was in charge of censorship on Twitter before Elon fired them, right? So before Elon fired this person, they were in charge of censorship. And they wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times today. And they said, I was the head of trust and safety at Twitter. This is what could become of it. And the article is just how it's going to be terrible and Twitter's going to fall apart. It's another one of these gang up on Twitter things. It's going to fall apart. And it's in the New York Times, right? So what does Cernovich say about the New York Times in this article, right? Hunter Biden laptop censor posts a dire warning about Twitter and disinformation in the Russiagate / Covington / Jesse Smollett hoaxer outlet. So he ties censorship of Twitter by this person to the other disinformation stories that the New York Times wrote, and saying basically like this person can't censor at Twitter anymore, so they're now part of the disinformation job at New York Times, right? It's just great, right? Cernovich at his best. We've got Financial Times yesterday writing this article, inside the crypto exchange that accidentally lost $8 billion. Have you seen all this stuff now that it was an accident, right? That whoops, whoops, I lost the money. Now, forensically looking at it, it actually looks more and more like an accident to me in a certain way. Like if I look at it, right, I can see how this would happen. You could let your books run away. They grew too fast. Forensically, it kind of does make sense, this story. But that's not the way to frame it, right? Just because you lost accounting doesn't mean that's actually the reason the reason it happened, right? It's not accidental. At a certain point, responsibility, premeditation, all those things have to come into play, and that's obviously just ignored again. So, New York Times, dead, I'd say, to most Bitcoiners, even if they aren't political. Financial Times never was very respected. Here's Forbes, and I know one of the writers of this article. Now, I haven't contacted this person because there's 4 writers in this Forbes article, and I just can't imagine my friend writing this, but his name is on it, so I got to ask him. But here's what it is. The original title of a Forbes article about the girl, right, Carolyn, the girlfriend, right? So the first title was Queen Carolyn, the risk-loving 29-year-old embroiled in the FTX collapse, right? So they got dunked on 100 million times. I'm sure you all saw it. And they had to change the title. They changed the title to Queen Caroline, the fake charity nerd girl behind the FTX collapse. Now, fake charity nerd girl is, let's say, one of those gentle insults, right? It's like a bit of a compliment, right? She's fake is the worst criticism they gave her. Charity nerd girl is kind of a compliment to some people, right? I would say, I don't mind being called a nerd. I'd say there's a lot of girls. I'd say she better hope she doesn't mind getting called a nerd. No offense to her looks, but if she's not okay being called a nerd, she's not going to be happy in life, right? She looks like a nerd, and I don't want to. I'm not here to make fun of her or anything like that. Like all these pictures of her that people are putting up on the internet, they lost money. I get it, but I mean they're having a go at her looks. So I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing that. But all I'm saying is, it's not an insult to call her a nerd. I don't think. Right? I don't think it's an insult. But that's what they came up with. So one of the writers, as I said, was a former CoinDesk writer. So I'm going to talk to him about this. I just want to know the process of how they came up with these headlines. My bet is he had nothing to do with it. My bet is he had some interviews and they all got rolled into an article he didn't write, because I can't imagine him writing anything like this. And I can't imagine him agreeing to it. I can imagine him being one of the reasons why they changed the titles, but we'll see. We'll see. So there you go. What's happened this week is you've got the justice system now, total disrepute, right? FTX, SEC, CFTC. You've got the media completely in disrepute, right? And people are starting to clue into this change. Now, I mentioned that we're going to have a lot of momentum, let's call it momentum, coming into the springtime. And here's what I was referring to. So this is the reality piece, right? This is the good reality coming to Bitcoiners after this Valley Forge, let's survive the winter situation. Let's make it to springtime when we have our show and Bitcoiners get together again and we can produce positive, optimistic headlines. And here's one that I'm working on. I've been trying to create this headline out of our show for a long time. So here's the headline. Bitcoiners, Bitcoin finance nuclear reactors, right? Bitcoin finance small modular nuclear reactors. So I'm trying to get Rolls-Royce into the show right now. I'm trying to get all these folks into the show. But here's an amazing story from yesterday. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I follow nuclear technology in America like it's no one's business. And here's what happened. So there is now a plan called coal to nuclear power plants. And what that is they take these old coal plants, which have all the infrastructure there, right? And they checked into 157 retired coal plants in America and 237 operating coal plants in America. So they looked at both of those and they said, can we systematize putting in small modular nuclear reactors on top of these coal plants in order to take all of their infrastructure to get the energy out? Like, how much of a savings can that be? How quickly can we scale small modular nuclear reactors across America using this blueprint? And when they're always, because this is still an engineering issue, right? What they're looking for, and I've mentioned it on this show before, is the nth of a kind deployment, right? Nth of a kind. So if they can figure out how to do one of these, it becomes an unlimited situation, right? It becomes kind of assembly line to be able to deploy these small modular nuclear reactors. So the goal is not to build one nuclear reactor. The goal is to systemize the creation of nth number of nuclear reactors, right? So it's the whole nth number process they're trying to isolate. And they believe they have found it. So that's what this article is about, right? And this is in Reuters. They believe they have found the nth number of SMR deployment that America can use by using former coal plants. So what did the results? So, well, I'll just read one piece of it. So new nuclear projects, especially first-of-a-kind technology, are expected to be expensive and difficult to plan efficiently, as their deployment must also include the creation of new supply chains, the training of a new workforce, and the construction of new infrastructure, right? So here, the study is to look into the repurposing of coal sites, and it looks like they're viewed as an increasingly seen as a way to get over this initial bump of coming up with the nth of a kind deployment plan. What they found was, of the 157 retired sites, 237 operating sites that they studied, 80% qualify for this small modular nuclear reactor to be dropped there, and no more coal burning, but a nuclear power plant, and then you use everything else to get the power to people. So they're saying 80% can do it, right? And one of the people that is going to get to do this, right, is TerraPower. TerraPower is already close to Bitcoin miners. It's related to Bill Gates, by the way. We are not Bill Gates haters on the show, by the way. I'm not anyway. I got questions about Bill Gates, but I'm not like one of these people who's, the vaccine stuff, I just don't care. I don't know enough about Bill Gates, and I don't worry about his money or anything like that. But, I could be wrong, right? We always got to say we could be wrong, right? I just don't, my back doesn't get up on the Bill Gates question. So Bill Gates is one of the owners. All billionaires, you got to be suspicious, right? All billionaires. Like, what's really going on in the world, right, is a bunch of billionaires, and you don't see them, and they've got, media machines and all that stuff going on. So there's a lot to be suspicious about, but I'm not gonna spend my time on Bill Gates, right? I don't even use Microsoft. But his stuff on nuclear power, I've been a big fan of. Right, I've been a big fan of his stuff on nuclear power and the toilets. I like the toilet thing, right? That he does the toilets in Africa. I'm a big fan of the toilet situation, getting better toilets. They need it, and the nuclear power. So it looks like TerraPower is going to get to do one in which state? Does anyone know? Wyoming, our favorite state, right? So it looks like they're going to build one of these on top of a coal plant to practice this nth of a kind deployment of nuclear reactors in the state of Wyoming. So I'm already working on it. I'm going to try and get some of these guys at our show. And again, my dream is to produce a headline out of Bitcoin 2023 where we see some role for Bitcoin in this nth of a kind deployment trajectory of nuclear reactors. If we get that, we're there, right? Then this perception and reality thing becomes true. It becomes true across the board, because the thing that Bitcoin requires to be distinct from everything else is to close the loop and be involved, close the loop on its own economy and get involved in energy, really to go next to the energy industry. And that's where I think we're going to come out of this winter. People's minds are already being open to terrible energy policies, right? And the importance of energy literacy. Bitcoiners are at once financially literate and energy literate. It's remarkable. No other group in the world is like that. So when I do say things like, oh, stay humble, we might be wrong about Bitcoin, well, then you go back to these supporting conditions and you say, well, if I'm wrong about Bitcoin, then something about it is going to fail here, right? Well, Ethereum has no energy left in it. There's no energy in Ethereum anymore, right? So in my mind, in order to make a Bitcoin world, it's not just more financial engineers and Wall Street people. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get a system that creates money that we can count, so we can have a sense of everything going on in the world, and it's not all lost to financial engineering, the same thing the Ethereum people are pushing all the time. So I continue to see this human resources and businesses and companies that come into Bitcoin and are absorbed by the marketplace over years. We saw it originally with cryptographers. Then it became political people, right? In the early days, the first Bitcoiners were the cryptographers on the mailing list. Then the libertarian folks started getting interested. That's how I was exposed to Bitcoin, from that political set that was very interested in it in the early days. The next group were the Wall Street people. They're not sentimental. They were there to trade it, and they saw it could trade and they wanted to trade it, which was good. We need that. We don't need everyone to be sentimental about Bitcoin. Not everyone has to love it. That there is someone who's interested in it because there's risk is great. It reminds me the porno with Carolyn and SBF. I didn't see it. I don't know what's going on with it. But they got the porno now, they say, right, of SBF and the Carolyn girl. Well, here's the thing. You know what I've said for a long time about what Wall Street did and why Bitcoin's different and why this perception is fake and this is reality, right? Well, the best analogy I have is by de-risking Wall Street through monetary policy, through the Fed Reserve, the fiat system, and everything else that's going on, the obfuscation, the confusopoly of Wall Street. What you end up having is Wall Street became a porno. There's no risk. It's not real. Right? There's no risk. You can't lose. You can lose on an individual trade, but it was a buy the market situation, buy the index, go, right? You were an idiot if you lost, like a complete idiot or greedy or something, right? Because it was a porno. You can't lose in a porno, right? But that's what Bitcoin brings back, right? Bitcoin brings back risk, right? It brings back risk. It teaches those folks that it's not a porno and reminds them what it's like to get fucked for real, right? For real. We're not here to watch some porn. We're here to fuck them, right? That's what we're here for. And when I say that, I mean get rid of it. It's gone, right? Or at least shrunken in importance, right? Yeah, as the Muslim Bitcoiner says, Bitcoin brings back consequences. It's exactly that. Yeah, they live in a consequence-free zone. They think it is all pornography. It is not pornography, right? Risk, the real financial risk. That's the difference we have. The early people that came to Bitcoin to trade it were the people who knew that the 2008 bailout made Wall Street certainly a porno. And some people just want to bang, right? They don't want the porno. They can't handle it. They don't like it. Some people want the real thing and only the real thing. And Bitcoin did attract those folks. That's why Arthur Hayes built BitMEX, right? If you didn't know that part of it, right? Arthur knew people wanted real risk. There were people out there who wanted it for real, not the porno version, the real version, right? The real version. So what did SBF and Carolyn do? Well, they made an actual porno, an actual porno, right? And that's what Wall Street is. It's a pornography film, right? It's just a pornography film. And you've got the contrast now where we're actually going to get nuclear energy involved in the incentives that create the Bitcoin system. And that will help really differentiate Bitcoin from everything else, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what that says, Muslim Bitcoiner, but he's vomiting. Yeah, it's not cool. I'm not going to watch that porno. I know I'm not doing that. I'm not into it. Good for them, I guess, but it's not my thing. So Tara Wolf is going to be doing this thing in Wyoming, and Muslim Bitcoiner, that's literally made to distract public from the debacle. I mean, maybe. It looks like they're doing their best to turn the page and turn the narrative over, right? It looks like that's definitely going on, but people are gonna forget it anyway, guys. I mean, there's not much we can do, right? We got to get out there and buy nuclear reactors. They can't forget the energy we own, right? That can't be forgotten. So, for me, when we think about this contrast, right, what has been lost for the opponents of Bitcoin in the past few weeks, right? Any credibility of licensure and all that stuff is now out the door. It used to be people said, "Oh, I'll get the license." At Kraken, that was our thought, right? Getting the bank charter. We went to Wyoming in good faith. In good faith, we created the entire legal structure. We created everything that we thought they would accept and would allow us to become a US bank. Now, we got the US bank license just to have a piece of paper to say, well, we tried our best, right? It wasn't like we thought, get a bank license and it's going to be the greatest thing, right? We wanted the bank license in order to be able to just say to the regulators, look, we have something, right? Like we got something here. We're not flying by the seat of our pants. But I argued at the time that we should have been more aggressive in just assuming our customers have VPNs, assuming they know how to use a VPN, and being abroad and not bothering with the US legal system. Now, I only brought it up not because I passionately believed that was the point of view, the right course of action at the time. I just wanted to make sure we were looking at all the options. When we got the US banking license, we were real happy and it made sense. But it didn't de-risk us. It didn't de-risk us. We get in trouble from New York. You get yelled at from everywhere else. And it did nothing, right? So this attitude that get it anyway, it's good to be safe and get a US license and backing probably is over forever. I can't imagine anyone prioritizing that anymore. I can't imagine. I saw the Grayscale letter yesterday to the market or whatever. So Grayscale being DCG's fund, right? They sell like a quasi ETF products, the GBTC, the Bitcoin Trust, right? They mentioned yesterday, oh, we're US licensed. We spent a lot of time working constructively with regulators. Why put that in a letter anymore? I know the CEO of Grayscale quite well, Michael Sonnenschein. I've interviewed him a bunch. I've spent social time with the guy. I've been to parties with the guy. He's a really smart guy, and I got a lot of respect for him. I think he's great. But I don't think he got the memo that no one gives a shit anymore about US regulation. And he's been mistreated by the regulators more than anyone, right? Now, they're stuck because they're in New York City. It's like double, triple regulation, so they can't really get out of it. But to go out of your way in a letter when you've only got so much real estate to say, oh, we work proactively with regulators, screw them, man. They're not working with you. They don't like you. They're not on your side, right? Not even close. Not even close. I think, so Danielle Renault said, I think OTEC is on par with nuclear for upside. I don't know what OTEC is. Someone can tell me what OTEC is. I don't know what that is. I'm curious. Not aware of any OTEC things. All right, team. Well, that's all I got for today. See you tomorrow. We're going to be doing, I think, a schedule change, but I'll let you know Monday morning. Okay, I'll check it. Ontario Tourism Education. Okay. What Bitcoin did and Breedlove had a great interview. I'll check it out. I'll check it out. All right, team. Peace. Great day. See you tomorrow morning.